What's going on, everybody? I'm your host, Ben Ballion, back with another episode of the Sports Pod. And today I'm going to recap everything that went down in week 14 of the NFL season. But before I hit the intro, I have a couple announcements. If you want to leave me a voicemail with your sports questions or takes for me to react to, you can do so by dialing the number 848-305-8073. I hope to hear from you there. And one last thing, we are just 10 subscribers away from hitting 100 on YouTube. I would really appreciate it if you could subscribe if you haven't already. Share this to a friend, share it to anyone, tell them to subscribe. I really appreciate the support I've been getting recently. All right, I'll get into all of it on the other side of the intro. Hit it.
DiVincenzo at three. Bang! Bang! At the wall, he jumps. It's gone. He did it. He did it. Pete Alonso with the most memorable home run of his career.
All right, getting into the episode. And let's start with the Thursday night game from last week because I think this was a very telling Thursday night football matchup. Packers and Lions. Lions win 35-31, although I think it's a positive loss for the Packers. They lose this game, yes, but in my eyes, it cements them as one of the legit contenders in the NFC. To me, there are four right now, and I'll get to another one. Before coming into this week, there were two in my eyes, the Lions and the Eagles. After this week, I think there are four, and the Packers are one of those new additions. Jordan Love has cut down on his interceptions. He hasn't been throwing as many picks, but he has to completely eliminate them. I think his receivers have to be a little bit more consistent. And at the end of the day, you're going up against the Lions team with Dan Campbell, and Dan Campbell is some kind of risk taker. He is such a good head coach. And he always presses the right buttons. He always takes the big risks when he knows it's gonna pay off. Like handing the ball off to David Montgomery in that spot with the game on the line. Not many coaches will do that. Most coaches will kick the field goal from there, but not Dan Campbell. Dan Campbell is some kind of coach. And I don't know if we've ever seen a coach like him before. I'm not calling him the best coach of all time or anything, but he's really some of the things he does, nobody would ever think about. And it always seems to work, like I just mentioned. And if he keeps pressing the right buttons and Jared Goff keeps playing the way he does, and the running back duo of David Montgomery and Jahmyr Gibbs keeps performing, and Amon-Ra St. Brown and Jameson Williams, and the buttons keep pressing, and the pieces keep clicking, and the pieces keep finding their way into the puzzle, the Lions are going to the Super Bowl. No doubt about it. They just find ways to win. They're one of the best, winners in the NFL. You look at the Bengals, and it feels like every week they find a new way to lose. Not with the Lions. They are the exact opposite. They find ways to win those games that you wouldn't think about. They find ways to win when it seems like their backs are against the wall. Fourth down, on the edge of field goal range. Let's hand the ball off to David Montgomery. You know what, Jared Goff? You're gonna fall down, but it doesn't matter. You're gonna trip on your offensive lineman, but you're still gonna get the ball, David Montgomery, and we're gonna go win this football game. That's the Dan Campbell mentality. All right, let's get to the next game. Saints and Giants. The G-Men continue their tank. 14-11 Saints win. I think I did predict the Giants to win this game, but I am very happy that they lost. Drew Lock has to be one of the best tanking quarterbacks of all time. The way he leads a tank, so the Giants are still in the game, and it's a competitive game, but the Giants lose anyway. Awesome. Great job by Drew Lock. Leading the Giants to another loss. One of the worst Giants years of all time. I mean, just brutal. There's nothing to look forward to unless they get their franchise quarterback this year, or they really make a huge improvement at a skill position or an offensive lineman that like comes in their rookie year and they make a huge difference. That's the only way that the Giants are good next year. Like they're going to need to have a stopgap quarterback, and I'm a little bit concerned about Jameis Winston. I know I talked about bringing Jameis Winston on as a stopgap quarterback. I think last week, but I'm a little bit weary of that now because of the interceptions that he keeps throwing. I'll get to the Steelers game next, but spoiler alert, he threw another pivotal interception against the Steelers, and that's not going to work. I would love Sam Darnold. Sam Darnold's not going to want a 1-year deal though, and I don't really want to sign him. Sign a quarterback for more than 1 year. I'd rather Shane and Daboll draft their guy instead of signing a guy who's already been under at least one, maybe multiple head coaches. In Sam Darnold and Jameis Winston's case, they've both been on multiple teams. So for the Saints, this is a weird loss. Like they're already pretty much eliminated from playoff contention, but it's about the pride. It's about like you never want to lose games in the NFL, and that's what the Saints are doing here. They know this game isn't going to mean anything, but in the end, they want to win every game. The interim head coach Darren Rizzi wants to win every game. That's just how the NFL works. And if you go out and lose games on purpose and your owner is not in on the plan of tanking, you're going to be gone. And for the Saints, they're in a spot where they don't really need to tank. They've got Chris Olave. They've got Derek Carr for a couple more years, I think. I know Carr's been hurt this year. They've got Rashid Shaheed when he comes back next year. They've got Alvin Kamara. Those two guys that I just mentioned, Shaheed and Kamara, looked really, really good to start this season. So I think the Saints should be trying to win football games, but also like they're pretty much out of contention at this point. So it doesn't really matter. Yeah, I mean, the Giants, going back to the Giants' perspective, losing to the Saints makes it so much more realistic for them to lose out this year. That the only matchup that I'm concerned about them winning is against the Colts in 2 weeks. Now, next week they play a good team. Let me look at the score right now. But Tommy DeVito starting, and you could check tomorrow. It'll be Thursday when my predictions episode goes out. But Drew Lock is hurt, so Tommy DeVito will be the starter. Next week, the Giants play the Ravens. I'm not worried about them winning that game. Then they play Atlanta. Atlanta could be a win, but I would expect it to be a loss. Then they play the Colts after that. That's the one that I think they can win, and I don't want it to happen. That's a home game, week 17, the week after they play at Philadelphia, which would probably be a loss. So there's really only one more game I could actually see the Giants winning here, and it's against the Colts. Let me get to the flag, the plane with the banner that flew over MetLife Stadium on Sunday morning. I think it's funny. If you missed it, the plane was telling John Mara to fix the mess of a franchise that he's been running over the last, I don't know, it's been a long time. The last playoff win was just 2 years ago. But before that, like the Giants have not been good for a good amount of time. Like they haven't been really good like they were back in the 90s with LT and in the 2000s with Plaxico Burress and Eli Manning and all the other guys that you know on that from that team. Or those teams, I should say, because there were a couple of them. So my take on it is I don't really care about it, but like if I had to make a statement on it, it's kind of funny. And like, I don't think it should be taken too serious. Like this is sports. It's fun. It should be fun. If you're losing, you have to take the criticism because you haven't been good. This is about winning, but at the end of the day, it's fun. It should be lighthearted. You shouldn't take things too serious. And I'm not saying the Giants took it too seriously, but like if you're getting all grumpy about it, like, oh, how could he say this? This is ridiculous. The Giants are one of the most storied franchises in the NFL. I know, dude. They suck this year. They haven't been really good for a long time. Like they weren't even that good in the Vikings year. The year they beat the Vikings in the playoffs. Like they just weren't. So it's not that big of a deal to me. And I think, I don't know, it's not important really. All right, let's get to the next matchup. Browns and Steelers. Steelers win, avenge their loss on Thursday Night Football from 2 weeks ago, 27-14. But this is a game. This was a pretty close game for the most part. And Jameis Winston, like I mentioned before, he threw another pivotal interception late in the game. Steelers go on to win by 13. Jameis Winston had 2 interceptions to go along with 2 touchdowns. And there was a stat when he was in Tampa Bay. He thrown 33 touchdowns, but he'd also thrown 30 interceptions. So this is not the first sighting of this. We have seen this throughout his entire career. Jameis Winston has never been really like a consistent passer that doesn't throw interceptions. He's never really taken care of the ball. And that's been one of the problems. That's probably one of the big reasons why he didn't get a starting job entering this year. But he's been solid overall. I mean, if you look at the scoring by quarter, 7-3 after the first, and then after the first, it was after at halftime, it was 13-7, another close game, and then that's where the Steelers really ran away with it. And then it was 27-7 after the third. But the Browns put up a touchdown in the fourth, 27-14. Made the Steelers sweat a little bit. But at the end of the day, Jameis Winston cannot throw interceptions, and it's gonna be a red flag for whoever's gonna bring him in. Because at the end of the day, I think Jameis Winston will get a shot as a starter, as a stopgap guy. He's not gonna go be like a starting quarterback for multiple years on a team. I don't think that's in the cards for Winston. You could see what I could see for Winston, what Jacoby Brissett did with the Patriots this season, and almost like just go there, start for a team that has a young rookie quarterback, mentor him, bring him up, and eventually he'll sit the bench probably week 6 or 7 once that quarterback is ready to go. That's what I see for Jameis Winston. I think he did have a chance to be a starter if he continued what he did against the Steelers, that first one against the Steelers, against the Broncos, and then this week against the Steelers. If he continued doing that, I think people will be looking at him as a potential option, like a real option for their team's quarterback. And I don't think that's crazy to say. But the Steelers, they just need to keep chugging along. They're entering quite the schedule here, I believe. They've got a tough rest of the way. Yeah, they've got to play Philly. They've got to play Baltimore. They've got to play KC the next 3 weeks. One of those weeks is a short week as well. From Baltimore to KC, it's a Saturday to Wednesday. They're playing on Christmas. That game's on Netflix at 1 o'clock. The Netflix game. One of the Netflix games, at least. So really 3 short weeks in a row because they play this Sunday, then they play on Saturday, and then they play on Wednesday. So that's going to be a storyline to watch out for. Can Russell Wilson bounce back quick enough as he does continue to get older here in the NFL? Because at the end of the day, he's aging a little bit. I don't think he's shown it with his play, but time is undefeated. We'll see what I think he'll be fine the rest of the year. I just want to see how he finishes the rest of this regular season. And I also want to see what seed do the Steelers end up with. Because if you look at the schedule right now, the Steelers, not the schedule, the standings, the Steelers are the 3 seed. They're 10-3. They're tied for second. But the Bills have the tiebreaker. So there's that. And so they're 3 seed. And I want to see where they could finish. They've got a gauntlet coming up. It's like they're playing postseason football from December 15th on. These next 3 weeks are going to be top caliber playoff teams, all 3 of them. The Steelers need to show me that they can win football games against really good teams, against teams that they're going to match up there. I would assume that they're going to match up with either the Ravens or the Chiefs at some point in the playoffs. Right now, Pittsburgh's the 3, Baltimore's the 5. I don't know who plays each other. It would be 2-8, 3-7. Yeah, so they could match up at some point if they each win a playoff game. And then I could also see them matching up with the Chiefs. That's not out of anything. Like This is the time for the Steelers where they've got to show me that they're a legit team. I think they can make some noise in the playoffs, but I'm not 100% sold on it. So I need to see a little bit from the Steelers as we progress. All right, let's get to the next matchup. Falcons and Vikings, another team that I think might be able to do a little bit in the NFC postseason. Not go to the Super Bowl, but I think they might be able to make some noise and knock off a team or two. Maybe get to stumble into the NFC Championship game. The Minnesota Vikings, they take this one 42-21. Kirk Cousins, another interception riddled game. 2 more interceptions. He's got 6 over the last 2 games that he's played. Not good. And now here we go. Is Kirk Cousins looking over his shoulder? Is Michael Penix Jr. waiting in the wings? I think Arthur Smith's gotta be looking at that a little bit, because he can't keep riding Kirk Cousins, because they are in a race for the division. And if his starting quarterback has thrown 6 interceptions in 2 games, it might be time to make a change. I would give Kirk Cousins until halftime of the next game. And then if he's not performing on a level that you want, hey, Michael Penix, let's see what you got. Let's see what that lefty arm's got. I am a big proponent of Michael Penix Jr. I think he's going to be a very solid quarterback in the NFL once he gets his chance. But you also have to factor in that Kirk Cousins just got $180 million, and he's not going to be on the Falcons for too long. So I think this is a prime spot where the Falcons could give Michael Penix Jr. some run. I also think that they're probably going to stick with Kirk Cousins, but I do believe that Michael Penix Jr. could compete with NFL competition, even though he hasn't done it. He hasn't had the chance to all year yet. But for the Vikings, their offense was clicking. Jordan Addison and Justin Jefferson combined for 265 receiving yards and 5 touchdowns between the two of them. That is a ridiculous stat line. That is awesome for the Vikings fans. I mean, Sam Darnold, I mentioned him before, and I mentioned this over a couple weeks ago. I think the Vikings have to look at trying to trade away J.J. McCarthy and signing Michael Penix signing Sam Darnold long term. I think he's going to be the best option for them, and the Falcons will be better if they trade their top 15 draft pick from this past year. And it's nothing against J.J. McCarthy. I think he's going to be a fine NFL quarterback, but I think Sam Darnold will ultimately be the better option, and it'll prove to be play out like that for the rest of Darnold's career and for the future of the Vikings. And why shouldn't the Vikings take a risk? I mean, would you want to see a quarterback who tore his ACL? He didn't play his rookie season, and you're just coming off a postseason appearance. I think it's pretty much a lock at this point that the Vikings make the playoffs. Or would you see a guy that proved himself in Minnesota last year, that has shown he can do it on the NFL level, has taken his team to the playoffs before, which will be this year, and done it with the team he's coming back to? I'm taking Sam Darnold in that spot. I think it's the smarter option for the Vikings, and I think they have an interesting decision, but Sam Darnold will prove to be the better option. All right, let's get to the next matchup. Not going to spend too much time on this one. The Raiders and the Buccaneers. Bucs win 28-13. But the Raiders are kind of sneaking up on the Giants for that number 1 overall pick. It was the Jaguars that I was worried about for the most part. But now it's turning into the Raiders. The Jags won this week. They beat the Titans 10-6. We'll get to that later. Not going to spend too much time on that one either, because that's one of the tank bowls this year. But the Raiders and Bucs, the Bucs are in a race for their division as well. It's going to be the Falcons or the Bucs that comes out of the NFC South, in my opinion. I think it's going to be the Bucs. There's just too much inconsistency with the Falcons. I don't think I can't trust them to really perform long enough. It doesn't seem right, and it doesn't seem like Kirk Cousins is holding up well throughout this year. His first year coming off an Achilles tear, and he's 38 years old. It's not expected of him to be what he once was 2 years ago with the Vikings, which was what I would say is his best year. But Baker Mayfield, he's dealt with a talent going down around him, whether it's Chris Godwin, who's out for the year. Mike Evans missed a significant amount of time. But he's also had guys step up and really blossom as contributors in the NFL. Bucky Irving. Kate Otten has had a solid year. I'm not saying he was like somebody nobody knew about. He's one of the better tight ends in the sport, but he's probably having one of his best offensive years of his career right now. But also for the Raiders, they might get the number 1 overall pick, but if the Giants end up getting it, the Raiders are going to be one of those teams where they're going to be the teams looking to trade up. They are going to take a quarterback this year. They've got a guy like Max Crosby on their defense. They're not a terrible team. If they had a solid quarterback, I guess they need some receiving help. They need and they need a running back, but their defense is solid. And I think like with a quarterback and just a little bit of skill position help, they can be a lot better and they can be a competitive team in the NFL. But it's going to take a couple big moves by their front office this year, and I don't think their head coach is the answer. Pierce is not the guy for them. He doesn't fit. I don't think he fits their players, and the players don't really fit him. So they might want to move on after just 1 year of 1 full year of their new head coach. All right, let's get to the next matchup. This is one I want to spend some time on. Panthers and Eagles, 22-16. The Eagles take it, but this is a very positive sign for the Panthers. Bryce Young has kind of emerged the last couple weeks, and he's been a lot better since getting benched in favor of Andy Dalton. This continued this week. They took the Eagles to the brink of an upset, but the Eagles pulled through, and the Eagles are a top team in football. The Eagles are a top 5 franchise in the National Football League this year. Saquon Barkley needs a couple big games to end the season if he wants to break the rushing record. I doubt he plays Week 18 unless there is still seeding on the line. But I also think that as a team, they just fit so well together. I mean, their targets on the outside, Devontae Smith and A.J. Brown, 2 of the better wide receivers in the whole sport. You got Saquon Barkley in the backfield. You've got Jalen Hurts as your quarterback. Your offensive line is the best in football. In my opinion, it's a top offense in football. It's probably top 2, top 3. Maybe the Lions are probably the only team in front of them. And their defense is really solid as well. Their defensive line's a little bit mediocre, but their secondary with Cooper DeJean and Reed Blankenship, it is so good and it is so dominant. And that's what's going to carry them. Their offense and their secondary. That's how they're going to get to the Super Bowl if they end up making it. The Panthers, on the other hand, they are completing an absolutely ethical tank. The Panthers, it feels like they're in every game to the last second, but then they're finding a good way to lose. They don't want to be winning these games. They are 3-10. They're still in the running for the first overall pick. They need receiving help so bad. They have Adam Thielen as their number 1 target and Chuba Hubbard as their running back, as their top running back. They need the help on the skill position so bad. They've got their quarterback in Bryce Young. There's no doubt about that. But what are they going to do to add to Bryce Young and give him some weapons to really help Young explode as one of the top quarterbacks in the league that I think he can be? So, overall, positive game for the Panthers. A little bit of a warning sign for the Eagles, but the Panthers have been competitive over the last few weeks, so I'm not going to read too much into it. Eagles win at 22-16. Jalen Hurts, another solid game. Saquon Barkley, another big game. All right, let's get to the next matchup. I'm just going to gloss over. Jags-Titans, 10-6 Jags. One of the most boring football games of all time. Neither team should be winning in that matchup. Neither team wanted to win, I would assume. One of the tank bowls, as I alluded to earlier. I mean, you have that matchup. I mean, the Colts and Giants in a couple weeks are going to be kind of a tank bowl, but that's just not a good game. That's not a game that many people want to watch. at this point in the year. All right, let's get to a bigger game for one of the teams. One of the other team was eliminated with this loss. Jets at Dolphins at Hard Rock Stadium in Miami, 32-26. The Dolphins take it in overtime, but the Jets were up 8 points at one point in the fourth quarter. Only the Jets can out-Jets the Jets. Aaron Rodgers has not had it this year. He's looking old. He's looking tired. And as games go on, it seems like he's winded. We saw Anthony Richardson earlier this year asked to sit out. I think Aaron Rodgers is more tired than Anthony Richardson. He just looks exhausted at the end of games, and he hasn't looked good. Like, that's the thing. He hasn't been a good quarterback for the Jets all season. He hasn't really had it for any singular game of this year. You could make an argument for the Titans game on Halloween, but I don't really know. Aaron Rodgers just hasn't been it. I think he's got to be gone next year. I think the Jets want him to be gone. It's going to be about, will a team take his contract, or can you cut him, eat the contract, and then have a rookie quarterback, because that contract won't be too bad. It's a lot about the numbers for the Jets from now. And I think there's a real possibility that Aaron Rodgers isn't the starting quarterback of the New York Jets next year. I think there's a possibility that Devontae Adams is not the top target next year. Maybe he's like getting faded. Maybe he's a 3 or 4 option, and you have Garrett Wilson as your one. You draft a receiver, and then he quickly becomes a number 2. Your running backs are solid with Breece Hall and Braylon Allen. Breece Hall hasn't taken a step this year I've expected of him, and Sauce Gardner has not looked good either. So I don't know what's going on in Jets world, but they need to tighten it up, because this is not real. This is not what they're supposed to be. They're eliminated from the playoffs. They should start to tank. But I don't know, man. It's not looking good for Gang Green. All right, let me get to the Dolphin side of it, because it's an interesting situation for me. So the Dolphins this year have one interesting games. I mean, they're 6-7. I doubt they make the playoffs. If you look at the standings, they're the 9 seed. Somehow the Colts are the 8 seed at 6-7. So the landscape is really wide open. They're tied for the 8. And we'll see what the Dolphins can make the playoffs, but I don't trust Mike McDaniels or Tua Tagovailoa in a big game. And once you get to the playoffs, they're all big games. The brights are light as can be. Can Mike McDaniel coach against an above 500 team? And can Tua Tagovailoa do it in a postseason setting? We saw last year when they played the Chiefs in the playoffs, they weren't able to do it. I get that it was a freezing cold game, but the Dolphins cannot keep using the cold weather as an excuse to lose football games. They did it just the week before this on Thanksgiving when they had to go to Lambeau Field. They used it as an excuse to lose the game. That's not how it should be. That's not football. I mean, they shouldn't be like using the weather. It's football weather. These guys have to adapt, and they have to make changes to, I don't know, their preparation. They have to be more ready to go in cold weather games. And in the AFC, if they make the playoffs, I would say, let's see, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, probably 5 potential matchups are cold weather games. The only 2 that aren't are Houston and the Chargers, because they play in domes. So they got to be ready to go for the cold weather. I don't trust them anyway. I think they could make the playoffs. They could sneak in. But even if they get there, I don't think they get out of the divisional round. Or the wild card round, for that matter. All right, next matchup, Seahawks at the Cardinals. A big NFC West matchup as far as the standings go. This division is so incredibly tight. 30-18 Seahawks win, though. Pretty convincing win. And much like I don't trust the Dolphins, I don't trust the Cardinals either. Kyler Murray's pretty good, but he's not ready to win a Super Bowl yet. He's not ready to take his team to the NFC Championship game yet. I still think the Cardinals can sneak in as a wild card, maybe the last wild card, but they're not ready. They're not ready to make noise yet. Their team is underdeveloped. I mean, Trey McBride's their starting tight end. James Conner is an incredibly underrated running back, but there's only so much he can do if Kyler Murray isn't getting the ball to his top target, Marvin Harrison Jr. And I need to see more out of Harrison. He hasn't been good enough. He's got to show me something the last couple weeks of this season. If I want to continue to believe in him, I'll give him his rookie year. I'll give him another season. But if it's the same thing next year, I don't know, that tandem, it's got to be weird. And I'm not blaming this on Marvin Harrison. I think it's more on Kyler Murray because Kyler is just not looking his way. Kyler Murray is throwing into all the other guys, and I think it's not like Marvin Harrison's a good receiver, and he can show that he is a good receiver still in this year, but I haven't seen it out of him yet. Overall, though, big win for the Seahawks. I think they take the lead in the division. And I'm gonna look at the standings for the NFC West right now, because we're at that point in the season where it is actually time to watch the scoreboards. And the NFC West, Seahawks lead 8-5 in the division. Rams right behind them at 7-6. Speaking of the Rams, let's get to the Bills and the Rams. I told you the Rams were gonna win. I told you, man. Everyone wanted to say Josh Allen history this, Josh Allen's so good that. Matthew Stafford, Puka Nacua, and Cooper Kupp and Kyren Williams had something to say about that. Even though Josh Allen made more history, becoming the first quarterback in history to have 3 passing and 3 rushing touchdowns in the same game, the Rams win 44-42. Another huge week by the Bills offense. The Rams offense, I don't know why I keep getting them mixed up right now. And I love what the Rams are doing. This is the other team that I think can be the NFC playoff team and make noise in the playoffs. I mentioned there are 4 after this week. It's the Lions, the Eagles, the Rams, and the Packers in that order. I am a huge believer in the Rams. Puka Nacua was the steal of the draft last year. He's going to be the steal of that class for a long time. And Cooper Kupp is getting back to what he does. He had a little bit of a down year last year after being in MVP conversations. He won the Triple Crown 2 years ago when the Rams went to the Super Bowl, but he's back this year. He's playing at an all NFL level. But the Bills, I'm a little bit concerned about. Their defense was flat out not good enough in this game. They need to be better. I mean, you got back Matt Milano. You just signed Micah Hyde. I don't know how much he's going to do. But their defense hasn't been good. They allow so many points in football games. I'm going to look at their schedule right now, and I'm going to tally up how many. Let's see. First week, they allowed 28. Next 2 weeks, next 3 weeks, for that matter, they only allowed 10. After that, they allowed 20 for the next 2 weeks, then 10 for the next 2 weeks, then 27, then 20, then 21, then 10, and then 44 this week. Sorry, in weeks 4 and 5, they allowed 35 and 23, not 10. So they've allowed a ton of points this year. I don't know where they rank in the NFL, but I would assume it's high. Opposing teams score so many points, and they're not going to be successful in the playoffs just playing shootouts. They have to have at least one, not necessarily a defensive battle, but a game where there isn't a ton of points scored, where it's maybe a 17-14 game. Those games are going to happen. The Bills defense, in my opinion, it's not ready for it. All right, let's get to the next game. I'm not going to spend too much time on this one. It's the Bears and the 49ers, 38-13. The Niners win. Big time win, although it's going to mean nothing. And the 49ers aren't making the playoffs. But for the Bears, their season really went off the rails when they decided to change their offensive coordinator halfway through Caleb Williams' rookie year. Doesn't make sense to me. Their head coach has since been fired. It's just a rough situation for Caleb Williams. I think he's just got to put this season in the past. He's played pretty well, in my opinion, and I think he's just got to move on to next year and, just flush this one out the window, move forward with his new offensive coordinator, with his new head coach who hasn't been announced yet, and just next year's his rookie year. This is like and even though the Bears like lost this game by a lot, there have been a lot of games this year where the Bears lose in like really creative ways that they shouldn't. I mean, you got the block field goal. They lost on a game-winning field goal a couple weeks ago. There have been like I know I'm forgetting. I'm blanking on two. When I was putting my notes together, I thought of at least 3 or 4. But like over the last couple weeks before this, the Lions game, the no timeout call. Yeah, I think that was really it. So it was like 4 or 5 creative losses, 3 or 4 really creative losses. If you say they win 2 of those games, it's a 6-7 for their playoff lives. So this Bears team could have been good, but I don't know. They're losers. They're not winners. All right, next matchup, Chargers and Chiefs on Sunday Night Football. Patrick Mahomes has some ridiculous relationship with black magic. It is. Every game, they are winning the most ridiculous ways possible. Patrick Mahomes he's not had his best year this season, but the Chiefs have continued to find ways to win. And it doesn't matter if they're getting the refs' help. It doesn't matter if they're getting a doink field goal to go. It doesn't matter if the Raiders fumble the football. They're finding ways to win. That's the bottom line. That's what you have to do in the NFL. You take wins any way you get them. They are hard to come by. Wins are not easy to get in the NFL, but the Chiefs have done a really good job at getting wins. I was watching a video a couple of days ago, and it was like just outlining the Chiefs season. They are like 6 or 7 plays away from being a 5-8 football team. The toe on the line in week 1. The pass interference called on the Bengals. The no pass interference call against the Falcons. The doink field goal. The fumble by the Raiders. Let me see. Let me look at the schedule. I'll remember what the other ones were. But that's 5 losses right there. Where if you take those 5 losses, they're 12-1 right now. That's a 7-6 football team that's fighting for a playoff spot. Let's see. I don't really remember what the other ones were. The Panthers game, 1 drive away from beating the Panthers. And in this game, just getting back to this game, there were so many false starts and holding calls missed on the final drive. That is not okay. The NFL refs have to be better about how they ref games. You can't just let the Chiefs get away with false starts. And it's been the same offensive lineman for multiple years. This is an ongoing theme. That Chiefs offensive lineman has consistently been jumping off sides for the better part of like 3 years. So like it's unacceptable how NFL refs officiate the Chiefs games, but it is what it is. Other teams have to grow up and they have to really they have to man up. They have to know what's coming and they have to expect it and they have to adapt from it. The Chargers did not do a great job. I think it's still another telling loss for the Chargers where they can hang with one of the top teams in football. This is 2 times this year. Like the last time they played, the Chiefs won 17-10. That's a close game. This time even closer at 19-17, where the Chargers were up in the final 5-6 seconds of the game before Harrison Butker turned the lights out with a field goal. I am okay with what the Chargers did in this game. Justin Herbert missed the drive. He got hurt, I think. I don't know if he practiced today. I know he wasn't available at the start of practice, but he was okay. He wasn't terrible, but that one drive does mean so much when you're playing such a good team like the Chiefs, especially because it was like a 2-minute drill where he could have brought the Chargers down the field and got them into field goal range. All right, last matchup of the episode. Bengals at Cowboys, 27-20. The Bengals win it. Bengals find a way to win? What? I don't think I've ever said that. Ja'Marr Chase and Joe Burrow hook up for a game-winning touchdown connection. It's unbelievable. It's a miracle. The Bengals never do this. But let me talk about Cowboys. Defensive lineman, linebacker. He plays like every position. Edge rusher. Micah Parsons walking off the field before this is over. It is unacceptable. You learn as a football player, as an athlete, as a basketball player, as a baseball player from a young age about sportsmanship, about not quitting on your teammates. And what Micah Parsons did walking off the field when he wasn't injured is absolutely unacceptable. I don't care how tough of a season you're having. I don't care that you just lost a bad game that you should have won. That is not okay. You stay on the field till it's over. You shake the other team's hand, and then you could go walk off the field. That's Antonio Brown-esque. That's a weak move. I don't like Micah Parsons for that. But now after this brutal loss, getting away from the Micah Parsons stuff, it's time for tanking for them. They're 5-7. They might have gotten they might be too deep into the season to start tanking, so it might be better for them to just win a couple games or try to win games down the stretch. But at this point, they're not making the playoffs, so I think it might be time to start tanking. It might be that time for the Cowboys and for the Bengals. Why not fight for a playoff spot? I think they're the 9th or the 10th seed right now, as far as playoff wise, and who knows? They can make something happen. Yeah, they're the 10th seed, but they're only a game back of 6-7, which would be tied for the 8. So why not try to make something happen? Joe Burrow, the question mark is going to be the defense. Joe Burrow and Jamar Chase are going to show up week in and week out. Can the defense handle it? And can they get stops and get off the field and let their offense go to work? All right, that's going to do it for this episode. If you enjoyed, please consider subscribing/following, especially subscribing if you're watching on the YouTube side of things. We're just 10 subscribers away from 100. I would really, really, really appreciate it. Also, if you want to leave me a voicemail with your sports questions and takes, I will react to all your voicemails at 848-305-8073. Also, make sure to check out all the links in the description below for bonus content on my socials. All right. And most importantly, make sure to keep it locked with the Sports Pod.